were not believing, like, what the hell? Dave saw us on the news singing "Best of You" and saying how excited we were. That was very special.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Foos Files, the podcast for fans of the Foo Fighters. Hope you're all doing well. It's Dan here, as always. So, that's a wrap on the European leg of the Take Cover tour. It came to an end last week in Lisbon. The band are back off to North America now. They're ready to resume again in Toronto on the 4th of August. And then they're pretty full on from then up until October, I think. And it looks like also from the teasers that have been released, they're going to be heading back to South America, or certainly to Argentina at least. So that's something significant to keep an eye on. Anyway, we've got another long episode this week. We're joined by Tiago from the Foo Fighters Portugal fan group to recap the festival show in Lisbon last week, the final night of the tour. Then on the back of starting the Foo Fighters A-Z in the last episode, which had some really nice feedback, by the way, so thank you very much to everyone who chipped in on that one. Tiago and I are going to tackle A Matter of Time, which isn't necessarily considered one of the more popular tracks on Wasting Light, but it's got some really interesting talking points, both lyrically and musically. As I mentioned last week, if there's a track on the A-Z coming up that you've got a particular desire to come on and discuss, well, yeah, the podcast is open to everyone. Drop me an email or a DM and we'll get something set up. Anyway, as mentioned, got quite a lot to get through this week, so let's dive straight into this week's interview and offer a warm welcome to the podcast to Tiago Cruz from Foo Fighters Portugal.
And the last night of a tour is weird, man. It's bittersweet. Because it feels good. It feels like the most fun we've had in a long, 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 long time. And these shows, these are the biggest fucking shows we've ever played in this country. And it feels nice.
Right, so one of my favourite things about doing this podcast is I get to connect with Foo Fighters fans from countries all around the world, and today we're jumping over to Portugal because we've got Tiago. How you doing, man?
I'm nice good, and you, Dan? Light him up, Dan.
You're the second person that's greeted me like that, and I love it. I love it.
We got to do it, man.
Yeah. Great, so it's been a big few days for you because you got the last night of the European tour in Lisbon, but the excitement started a bit before that because you got to meet Dave.
Yeah, indeed. I figured the time. I could figure the time that they were going to arrive in Lisbon airport, so I went there in the hopes of seeing the band, like meeting the band and giving a handshake or whatever. I had nothing like really prepared until last minute when I was like, I gotta get something to give to the band or something like that. So I was like, I bought some crappy pens and paper, and I drew a postcard. I wrote something I don't remember because I forgot to take a picture of the postcard because I was like, I did not know what I was doing at that moment. And I got them like a book about Portugal. And I went there to the airport in the hopes that I would find them. Like, I don't know if they were going to leave from the normal exit, from the VIP exit. But when you arrive to the airport and you go to the VIP exit and it's full of black vans, you're like, I think it's here. I think it's going to be here. And so I just waited for a little while. When I arrived there, I spotted one of the Foo Fighters security because I was also in the Warsaw show. And walking around Warsaw, I did notice their hotel as well because there were a ton of fans at the door. And in that show, I managed to take a picture with Nate only. In that show, I mean, in that hotel. So when I got to the airport in Lisbon, there was his security guard. And not soon after, the band started exiting the airport. it was exciting, but I was like really quiet because you know they don't know us. We know them; they don't know us. And there were some people there who were kind of too excited, so the security was a bit on edge. But luckily, I did not move much, and Dave went my way, and I was able to like, "Hey, can I take a picture?" And he's like, "Sure." We take a picture, and then he was leaving. I was like, "Wait, I have a gift for you." I don't just want to take stuff; I want to give stuff. Very Portuguese way of receiving people, you know. And so I gave him the book and the postcard. He says, "Oh, thank you so much." And I was like, "That's nothing. Like you gave me so much more." It's all I remember saying, and it was so fast that. And then he went to the van to meet his family because they were all here as well. And I mean, you can't really believe stuff like that happened. You know, it's so fast and it's amazing. It's a dream come true.
Yeah. How did he react to the gift?
It was too fast, man. He was like, "Oh, thank you," and then also in my brain, everything goes even faster because it's like this is happening. So you can't really like when it finishes, you can't really like remember the details. I was like, I wish I remembered more of the look in his eye. I wish I remembered more, like if I of the handshake. I wish I remember, but everything is just so intense in the head of a fan that it's like it goes so fast.
You
He
know,
was thankful though, but yeah,
yeah. And when you got security, they're there for a reason, and they want
exactly,
to whisk them off as quickly as possible, don't they?
exactly, and they're also like kind of tired. I guess the flight from Madrid to Lisbon is 45 minutes, but they had a show the last night, so and it's the last show as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. Before we get on to show day, we were just talking before we press record, but you're part of a Foo Fighters, well, the Foo Fighters Portugal fan group, which you were
mhm.
telling me about. So do you want to describe that for the listeners, what that's all about?
Well, we try to represent the Portuguese fandom in on the internet because like it can't be just the UK, Brazil, Spain, whatever, Argentina. Uh, we also needed like to have a representation. And I felt because I'm very proud to be Portuguese and a Foo Fighters fan, and I wish for the band to notice the country so that they can come here as well, like an invitation. And like you have people here who like you and who really want to see you. So I guess that's what how it goes for any country fan page. People just want like to feel seen by the band and by promoters, and in a way that like let's bring the Foo Fighters to Portugal more times. I mean, because we've had some bad luck in the past with the cancellations due to tragedy and everything. But that's basically it. We just want to keep people informed and keep people included. You know, in a community, like there's more people like you who love this band. You're not crazy
Yeah,
alone.
absolutely. And you were telling me that I mean, your English is perfect, and you were saying basically sort of British and American films plus Foo Fighters music that's helped you. So Foo
Yeah,
Fighters have helped you learn the English language.
yeah, indeed. I think so because uh, you hear this song so many times, you kind of start assembling the language also through music, not just Foo Fighters, but other bands, American bands or English bands as well, and also the movies. I mean, when you're a kid and you have access to English movies, it becomes like a natural second language. You can uh, memorize lines from movies and songs, so it's kind of natural in a way. But it really helps because before Foo Fighters, I listened more to like Portuguese music on the radio, like pop music on whatever was on the radio. You know, I did not actively search for for music. Only after like seeing the cover for the self-titled Foo Fighters album, I was like, "What is that? I'm curious about that." And then I asked a friend, and I heard it. Sounded like crap because it was the first rock album I've ever heard in my life. But I was like, kept listening, and then just fell in love for it until this day.
So you're an original 1995 Foo Fighters fan, then, sort of.
I might have listened to it in like around '97, So very shortly, I was listening to The Color and the Shape, and that was the deal was sealed, with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So you were there in Lisbon last week for the festival, the NOS Alive festival. First of all, then, to give us an idea, because I guess a lot of people listening to this won't know about this festival. So, what's just tell us all about that to start with.
Well, it's a big festival. Like this, Foo Fighters were the first ones to sell out this year's a date this year, and it's like 60,000 people. So it's pretty big, and it's one of the biggest festivals in Portugal, along with the Rock in Rio Lisbon, and it's usually packed with big acts. We've had like there was like Green Day, there was like Arctic Monkeys as well, great band. Even Biffy Clyro, I've seen them in NOS Alive. Um, I mean, in just a ton. I cannot remember now the other dates. Jane's Addiction is also, by the way,
Okay.
to throw in a little bit of Taylor Hawkins' favorite
Yeah,
band.
yeah, of course, of course. Yeah. So what's a Portuguese crowd like then?
Well, the Portuguese crowd, they sing a lot, and there's proof of that in this year's broadcast of the show, but also in 2017 show, in its 2017 show, when we just basically took over their show at the end, and we started chanting every chant there was, including the national anthem, back to the band, which was very fun. And the band started jamming on the chants, so they started writing songs, like playing songs with our jams. That was funny. And now this year, the same happened during these days when he stops in the middle of these days. We There's a silence, and people immediately start chanting for Dave to jump and jump. It's salta, Dave, ole, ole. And then Dave doesn't know Portuguese, but he's like, he figures it out and he starts jumping up and down. It's like, hey. So it was a very live, very interactive. I think there's a lot of people really feel like thankful to have bands like the Foo Fighters coming to Portugal, because we're a tiny country and we also need to spend more of our wage to buy tickets. Like we're famously poor country. So I think that just adds to the intensity. We don't buy stuff for nothing.
Hmm. Sure. You make a good point, actually. Not only was it the last night of the Take Cover European tour, but it was being broadcast live as well. So I guess, I don't suppose it really has an impact when you're actually there, but I suppose to the band, it kind of makes it even more of a big deal to them, knowing that you're playing to 60,000 people, but then there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially more watching at home as well.
I hope so, but I also hope that we are enough. I know we are, because they were also very interactive. They told stories that they don't usually tell. Like Dave was before they went on to play, for example, Marigold. Dave was like he was telling that he remembered coming to Portugal the first time with Pat Smear, which was in '94. He said '93 by mistake, but it was '94 for a Nirvana show. And so then he started talking about how he wrote Marigold, and then they played Marigold, and that was a nice one. It was like that was a funny one. He was like, so we came here with Nirvana in '93. And so this tour, we thought about playing some old songs, and people started, yeah. It was like, don't get too excited. You probably thought people were like thinking they was going to play Nirvana. So it was like, no, we're going to play this song that I wrote while I was in Nirvana, called Marigold. That was funny.
Yeah, great. I mean, the set list for the show, it was quite. And you bear in mind, I suppose for you went to the Warsaw show as well. It's quite fixed, and you kind of got their typical festival
Yeah.
set list, I guess, but so it was mainly the hits and
Yep.
the
But
popular
still,
songs. But it went, that's what people want, I guess, isn't it? In a
yeah,
festival
we
show.
didn't get any new songs there. But it was nice. I mean, I saw the Warsaw show and Lisbon show, and between the two shows, there were a ton of songs that they did not play at the Warsaw show. Sky's a Neighborhood, Run, for example, as well, and there were more that now I'm blanking. So it felt great. Like I saw many songs played live this year, and I really loved the Sky's a Neighborhood, and they don't always play that one. And it was but also Run is amazing. I mean, it feels so liberating singing We Run in from the crowd. So that was special. Even seeing the second show, it did not feel like a repeat, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we have the set list debate online between fans all the time. And I think not only people who go to more than one show, but also those of us who follow it. So when they've done a show somewhere, the next day, the first thing you'll do is look at the clips in the set list. So you become familiar with it. And I guess we're just a bit spoilt, really,
Yeah.
because there's 30 years of songs, and it's very difficult. I mean, at Liverpool, I really wanted Stacked Actors, and I wanted Hey Johnny Park. And I think I could be wrong now, but the first night there when I didn't go, they got Stacked Actors, and on the night I went, we got Hey Johnny Park. So it's you win some, you lose some, right?
Yeah. Well, at least you got one.
Yeah, exactly.
Next time, buy two tickets. That's the lesson you've learned.
Yeah, it is. That is very true. That is very true. Yeah, I mean, don't like to criticize the band by any means, but I think the fact they didn't play any of the new album in Madrid or Lisbon, that was, people are finding that a little bit strange that you didn't get at least one song
Yeah.
off it. But there's obviously a reason for that. They obviously
Yeah.
they've obviously gone off it, or they don't think people are gonna know the songs, so they just haven't
Perhaps
decided.
it's kind of weird for me because after all these years, I mean, they surely have enough confidence in themselves to at least play one new song, and I actually love the new record as well. It's Spit Shiny is not for everyone. I understand, but it's great. I love it. I love that song. Um, but I guess like they also did not write that album for big shows. You know, it,
No.
they fit really well on the secret shows, but maybe not on the on a big fest, especially festivals where people are more like a general audience as well, mixed with fans. Um,
Yeah, and the other thing is that you've got to bear in mind. I mean, it feels like in the UK we get the Foo Fighters a lot. I mean, even though they only played 2 dates in Liverpool, they did the secret shows earlier in the year. In 2024, which doesn't feel like that long ago, they did a full tour for mainland Europe and countries like Portugal. You don't get them anywhere near as often. So maybe they feel there's an obligation that they've got to go out and play the greatest hits
yeah,
when they come to somewhere like that.
perhaps as well. I know last time they played here was 2017, so like 9 years ago. They were slated to play in Rock in Rio in 2022, but we know what happened in between. And so that sadly did not happen. And we had other cancellations also in the past due to in 2001 it was also when Taylor was hospitalized and there was a canceled show here in Portugal. I once bought tickets to Wembley and he broke his leg. So I had a Foocation without Foo. That's in London. So I've also had a bit of bad luck in terms of shows, but that doesn't matter. Like as long as they continue playing and continue to be a band and do new songs, that just feels so great for me and for you. I guess like we, I'm so thankful that they kept going, man. We didn't know if they were going to continue after everything that happened, and I was really happy that they managed to move on.
It's the thing is with that as well. It's made me feel grateful not just about Foo Fighters, but my other favourite bands as well, that they're still going, because what happened to Taylor, it just made me go, well, do you know what? When my favourite bands come round now, I'm never going to take it for granted or kind of go, well, I'll catch them next time.
If I had a penny for every time I heard someone say, I wish I've seen the Nirvana gig in Portugal in '93, because I was like, oh, I'm going to see them next time. And then, it happened as well. If I had a penny for so many people tell me stories from those days. I was too young for that show, but older people than me, they tell me that story all the time. And it also comes as a reminder for life in general. Like, we're talking about losing band members and losing bands, but imagine like losing a loved one and everything. We got to keep going afterwards, because any person that we love, we honor them by continuing, by not forcing, but like continuing being happy. I mean, they want us to be happy, right? That doesn't end, but there's a guilt and there's everything, grief, everything involved, but the lesson to be learned from here, and since we followed this band for so long, there's so much of our lives intertwined with the music and with whatever happens, that it all becomes one thing. It's like it's a good role model to follow. Like, let's continue, and we got to live.
Yeah, it's a great way of putting it. So, other highlights from the show last week then. I mean, the clip that is being got a lot of attention online was during the band introductions. Shifty was getting like a Lisbon versus Madrid rivalry going before he does his little section saying, can you guys be better and louder than Madrid?
Yeah, exactly. Better and louder, and do a bigger mosh pit. Because first he went like, okay, let's see if the left side or the right side, let's see who does the biggest mosh pit. And can you do it better than Madrid last night or whatever, two days ago? And then they go like, oh shit, you don't do that. You don't compare them to Spain. Like, you know how it goes. It's like England and Scotland. There's gonna be the neighborly rivalry. So, but it's funny. I mean, of course, no one took it seriously.
All right, you guys ready for this? Which side's gonna pit harder tonight? Right side or left side? And can you go harder than Madrid did the other night? I don't know. We're gonna judge at the end. Pat's gonna be the impartial judge.
Yeah, he is.
Let's go.
There was a lot of mosh pits during that show. Some other member of our fan group told us, because he was in an area where there were more mosh pits during other songs, and he was like, I wanted to go in, but at times it was getting too violent. So I guess the crowd was really lively, and there was a lot of chanting around, even on Wheels, when Dave is always like very insecure about Wheels. I don't know if you know this song or whatever. And then people just sing it back to him anyway. So that was, it's always reassuring that the crowd knows what they're getting, because the Wheels confirms it. I mean, it's in the greatest hits, so I guess a lot of people listen to the greatest hits.
Exactly. So any other sort of major highlights from the show to cover this one off?
Well, there was a very special one. Close to the end of the show, Dave points to someone in the audience right next to us, and we thought it was like us or next to us, and he goes like, "I saw you on the news." And when he says that, the girls next to me, who we pointed to, were like going crazy, and I was like, with my wife, I was like going crazy because we all were on that news piece together at the front in an interview, and we were like, Dave saw us on the news, what the and we even got to sing a little bit of Best of You on the news. He saw us sing Best of You. Oh my god, was surreal. And she had the sign asking for Dave's wristband. It was a small sign. No way in hell Dave was gonna read this from the stage. And so, like, he read it on the news on the TV because she had the sign. So at the end of the show, Dave comes down a little bit, not fully because the stage is huge these days. You know how it goes. And he hands it. He hands the wristband to a security guard, and points to the girl and says, "Give it to her. Give it to her." And then she gets it. She's totally ecstatic with it. And we were not believing, like, what the hell? Dave saw us on the news singing "Best of You" and saying how excited we were. That was very special, very special. Another unexpected moment, and shows how much they care about fans. I know that also Sean went around the front distributing gifts to some people, like some kids from another friend of mine got a drumstick that was broken, so it was used on the show, and some guitar picks. And yeah, they really look after their fans, and they care about it.
That's really cool. So the news bulletin then, was this the local news channel had just come down to do a piece on the festival, on the show? So I guess they captured you guys waiting around.
Yeah, at the front, we were at the barrier already waiting, since we were there from the start, of course. And that was really amazing. I actually gotta grab that recording from before it goes away from the internet forever.
Yeah, you need to keep that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, great stuff. Well, it sounded like an incredible show anyway to finish off the tour. You know, whatever you can sort of take your likes and your dislikes from the set list and stuff. The fact is, on this tour, they're sounding
Amazing.
absolutely amazing and
Yeah.
having a lot of fun again, which is what we all want.
Yeah. Dave mentions that, actually. He said, like, like Lisbon is an amazing place to finish the tour, and that it's been a long time since they felt this good, like playing live and being together as a band. So, and we can understand why, right?
Yeah.
These have been great shows. The sound was great. The light show, especially since I saw it in Warsaw, it's a standalone show, so it's more production and everything. It was amazing, but even on the festival show, it was pretty great. Really enhances the music, and people, the crowds were like really appreciative that they're still around.
Yeah, the lights show is interesting because, like, I can't remember every detail of every Foo Fighters show I've been to since like 2003 was my first one, and as I mentioned on a previous episode that your memory becomes hazy.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go as far as saying this is the best lights and visual show they've ever had, because somebody will go, "Oh, you've forgotten about this tour," or whatever. But coming out of the Liverpool show, I was like, I actually don't remember previously coming out of a Foo Fighters concert and talking so much about the visuals and the lights, because their show is normally quite fairly stripped back, and they just let the music and their personalities kind of do the talking. But it was quite striking this time.
Yeah, and they still do it, and it's amazing that they are able to. They don't compromise on their DNA, you know, like there's still no click track, there's no programming on almost anything. They need to, like, someone needs to start it when it's the time to start, because they don't play like a grid. They don't stick to a grid and do like robotic shows. They keep it raw, and they still are able to incorporate this amazing production around it. That is really great, because most of the times it's very big bands can be very cookie cutter on their shows in terms of the rigidity of their alignment. You know what I mean? It becomes like a chore, or like another day at the office. And even though they play of obviously the same songs over and over again, it still feels like it's different every time. They're always on the limb. They're always out there on the limit. It's amazing.
Listen, I saw you on the news. Yeah, you're on the fucking news today.
Well, it was great hearing about the Lisbon show. While you're here, the last episode we started doing this Foo Fighters A to Z on the podcast. So what we're going to do now is talk about a little bit about A Matter of Time from Wasting Light. But I'm really glad you're here for this, because started off last week with A320, which is it's a bit of a weird one to describe it, because it is a deep cut, but it's also, you'll find a lot of Foo Fighters fans who will never have heard it because it's not readily available. But the funny thing was, you dropped me a message afterwards about I'm Alone Again, which cropped up in the episode with Dan, and he said, people will think I'm mad, but I've got this favourite song that was never released. And people look at me funny, but you were like, yeah, I remember that song from the LimeWire days of the internet. So I'm glad that we've got you on here the following week to sort of for a discussion about a slightly better known track, obviously.
Yeah, and there's a ton more of like hidden songs from, but it's I don't know. You were not from those days, right? Because you started being a fan more recently.
So There's Nothing Left to Lose was my sort of era that I was introduced to them. Yeah, so I'm a little bit later.
That's still enough to go on the old internet, slow internet days, and like trying to find anything that was available about Foo Fighters, like whatever it was. Like the lyrics were already hard to find. These B-sides and like the live recordings and everything. And since you mentioned it, I think one day you need to do an episode about the Foo Fighters post-board, man. You need to get some people who were on the Foo Fighters post-board and get them to talk about that, because that was another Foo Fighters experience that we're never going to get again, and still a lot of people remember fondly because it was an amazing community there.
So I wasn't on it myself, but I'm in touch with, I've got to know since doing this podcast, a lot of people that were on it, and they've said exactly the same. So that is something that we'll definitely follow up on at some point.
Good old days.
Yeah, what was your username on there for anyone who's listening?
Oh my god, I can't remember. I don't know. I don't remember, actually. I don't remember. It was maybe it was Big Me PT or something like something with PT from Portugal in the name, something like that. I don't remember. I wrote a fan fiction, a Foo Fighters fan. I remember that. Like it was like a comedy, like script, like an episode of a funny dialogues with stuff that fans would understand from those times, from interviews and stuff like that.
Okay, that sounds cool. So, A Matter of Time then, track 8, Wasting Light, 2011. It's the really interesting time for the band. You've got the Dave Grohl and Butch Vig combination back together. I mean, Butch had produced the 2 new songs for the greatest hits, Wheels and Word Forward, but then they've got him in to do this kind of full album. And it's an interesting time because they'd had probably the longest break they'd taken for a while. I think they went off in 2008. He said, we need a long break. But then he went off to do his Them Crooked Vultures stuff. And then I think Shifty was doing the Dead Peasants stuff. Taylor, the Coattail Riders. Nate had done a reunion tour, I think, with Sunny Day Real Estate. So this song, as many of the other Wasting Light songs, had been in some form kicking around for a few years, but before they finally got to record them. But I mean, this is a really interesting track. I put it out there on the socials the other day, and you had some people kind of going, oh, I love this. This is one of my absolute favourites. And then you had others going, not criticising it, but they were going, I actually think this is one of the weaker songs on Wasting Light, but that's more a testament to how good Wasting Light is as a complete album, rather than saying this track is bad.
Yeah, don't give me silver. Silver sucks. I would just want platinum. Actually, like I also I love the whole record, and A Matter of Time. I also, while not being like the favorite from that record, of course, but it's, of course, I mean, for me, it's very melodic and energetic, and the lyrics are really inspired, I think. And I think working with Butch and doing also the documentary, the back and forth documentary at that time, forced them to look back on their experience, on their whole experience as Foo Fighters. And I'm not sure. I don't want to be the another guy saying like this song is about Kurt Cobain, but there's some. If you look at the lyrics, there are some parallels here for not about Kurt specifically, but for the time after Nirvana ended, because like let's change the subject to someone else, like he says on the lyrics. That's very classic Foo Fighters early days, with the interviews always asking about what about, is this song about Kurt? Is this Kurt? You want to talk about Kurt? You want to talk about Nirvana? And he was always being forced to be reminded of, like of a lot of pain, and when he was most desperate to try to move on, which is like starting the Foo Fighters and moving on, he was still being dragged right back into Nirvana and into that the pain of loss. And I think, after all those times, not just the documentary, but working again with Butch brings a lot of those memories back, and like in a way is like he's so well protected from the past that he's now willing to expose himself to it again. Like working with Butch, inviting Chris Novoselic for the I Should Have Known track for as well. Like he's bringing a lot of the past back, as and probably accepting it more than he was in the past. Maybe the break also helped him with that.
Yeah, and being comfortable with that past as well. I
Yeah,
mean, there's the other line is, I think my past is getting us nowhere fast,
exactly.
and so there's probably an element of there could be a degree of
Yeah,
running away from it, from the past, or it could be a, well, I can't run away from it, I can't dwell on it.
yeah,
Let's just move along, people.
yeah. And that and there's another line that also reminds me of those days from Dave's interviews, when he says like nowhere seems like somewhere to go. Where he went nowhere. He went to the to Kerry, what's called in Ireland. He went to the middle of nowhere to like try to escape all the noise and everything. And so I think that's another line that kind of tells us that this song might be inspired by those moments. Like nowhere seems like somewhere to go. That's where he went. He went nowhere to be at peace. Um, but I might be like a bias. I might be biased into it because we know this is what we know. We don't know their whole lives, but it kind of seems like it.
That's Dave lyrics, though. They are quite ambiguous in that way, but it is interesting the point you make, though, about reconciling with that past and being questioned about Nirvana. But it's just amazing that this is 2011. Well, it came out in 2011, so you're still talking well over a decade into the Foo Fighters, and he's still feeling like that's coming up time and time again, if that's what he is
Yeah.
addressing in this song.
And especially on his interviews for the documentary as well. Like they go back, if you remember, they go back to those, and they mention it really strongly, like the moments when Dave was being like asked all the time about Nirvana and everything. So maybe like he had to make peace to be able to move on again, and accepting bringing in Butch and bringing in Chris Novoselic was another way of like, I'm okay with this. Let's just let it go and accept it and move on. But we'll never know.
Yeah, I mean, it's also there's a lot of references to time and the consequence of time, and they could be going back to the documentary as well. That they were really peaking at that time. You know, they did Wembley Stadium, which was
Mhm.
the biggest thing they'd ever done. I mean, I don't know whether this song would have been written before or after that, but even so, when they were doing that documentary, it may even have been a point where there was a line in the sand, and he goes, "Maybe we don't top this."
Yeah, and when he says it's just a matter of time before time runs out, before we die, before, I mean, it's for us to decide. He leaves it for us to decide, but I guess there's no other way of going with life but forward, like I mentioned before we started analyzing this song. I guess he moves this way a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, and he's always talked about with his music about it being an element of survival as well. So that time running out thing is quite prevalent, perhaps.
Yeah, music always kept him, I don't want to say alive, but always kept him like at least a little bit sane through all the crazy stuff. Um, and I mean, this song was 2011, but now knowing what we know now is like there was even more after that, right? With Taylor and Dave's mom, music always still was the answer to still was the answer to his grievances.
It's the catharsis that's kept him going. Yeah, so lyrically, yeah, very very interesting song. One of the most interesting songs, and a lot of the songs are from around that period. Actually, some of his most interesting lyrics, but also musically, this is quite telling. Particularly from I know you play guitar, I play guitar as well. We were having a chat about this before we started playing, but in terms of the way this song's layered, this is one of those where you can really hear what the kind of three guitar Foo Fighters is all
Are
about.
doing, yeah, indeed, with the chuggy chuggy guitar, and then a little bit of the arpeggio going behind it, and then the accents, are probably Pat doing the da-na-na-na, like that kind of stuff. And you can, yeah, it's really nice to deconstruct, and it's really melodic in the verses as well. It's like really pretty in the verses. I think the also it's funny that, and some people pointed it out at the time, that the intro is kind of like a Rage Against the Machine, Bulls on Parade, but you need to count the time differently for it to fit
Yeah,
with the the Bulls on Parade. But
yeah,
theirs is completely inverted. Is dun, 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 dun. It reminds you of that, but it's very different at the same time. And I guess no one's really an owner of a simple riff in a way.
no, and there are only so many notes on a guitar.
Exactly, and rhythms.
The dynamics of the song as well, because Wasting Light, it's quite a generally speaking, it's quite an aggressive record. Whereas this, with the, as you said, the chuggy chuggy thing, it feels like there's a build up of tension in this song rather than it being full balls out
Yeah,
rock and roll. And you kind of expect it's going to like burst in some sort of way, but it kind of manages to stay on a level at the same time.
yeah. Except when it goes into the chorus or at the end when he's screaming "a matter of time." Then there's the catharsis, but it also, if since we're talking about the lyrics, when he's singing those lyrics in the verse, is the melody is actually very peaceful. So I think he's probably made peace with the past, and even though the song sounds confrontational, I think it's a confrontation with himself. It's not with anyone else. It's like him talking with himself. Like, I don't know, you're one to talk. The heart is a clock, just like a bomb. It keeps on ticking away. That way, I think he's talking to himself, really, and just going, "Stop complaining." I mean, like, life's not perfect, but you gotta keep going. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of these days as well, because we're
Mm.
associating the heart with a clock, and stuff like that. Probably there's a little bit of a reference in these days to also that kind of past, but I don't know.
Yeah, you could be right. It's to say Dave does like to leave things quite ambiguous, and he doesn't talk a great deal about his lyrics, which kind of leaves a lot to the imagination for us fans.
And I like that. I think at least we got something to discuss instead of being like, there's nothing to say. He already said what it was.
We were talking about that song a matter of time, is that it's kind of drum related, the way it works. So if you imagine playing a normal sort of 4/4 beat with two hands and one foot, you've got one hand that's doing like the eighth notes. And then you've got your left hand that's doing the twos and the fours, and you've got your kick drums that's doing the ones and the threes. So if you think of the way that we play together, each one of us is a different element of that thing.
Yes.
So you are typically the right hand that's doing this thing. I'm typically the twos and the fours, and you're kind of on the ones.
Weird.
On the guitar layering bit that we were talking about, have you seen the Shred with Shifty podcast episode?
Yes.
With Pat and Dave, because this is one of the songs that actually gets mentioned as an example of how they figured out the three guitar thing, and Dave described it as, we've said before, how he writes songs through the lens of a drummer, which sounds like an obvious thing to say, but it's obvious without being obvious, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But he does say that with a drummer, obviously using two hands, one foot, and I think he describes Chris as being the eighth note guy.
Yeah, he's the symbol.
Dave's doing the twos and the fours, and Pat's doing the ones, and he says it's very much like the three guitars are like a drum beat.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, if he did not tell us, we wouldn't get there, I think. We would just be like, this is really rhythmically locked, really well locked together. But when he mentions that, he sees guitars like, or songs or whatever, like drums, that becomes like really, really obvious in a lot of songs, including A Matter of Time, and the other one was Rope, I think. And it's very unique. This is a band from a drummer, but he does not put the drums on the first line of the mix. The guitars are at the front more than the drums, but they also emphasize the drums so well that you don't really need the drums at the front, man. It's and A Matter of Time has a little bit of that as well, because whenever there's the accent on the verses, for example, on the ta-na-na-na, also the drums accompany it a little bit as well, and the same thing with the chuggy 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 part. The drums just go like really quietly and in a straight motion with the guitar. And I guess it helps us like feel everything without thinking about it, and that's why a lot of their songs work so well. You don't need to think much about them; they just feel right, just so locked in.
Yeah, I'm glad they did that breakdown and that explanation, because when I interviewed Omar Hakim about recording with the Foo Fighters, and he did a really great explanation of how the three guitars come together. And it was great because I feel like a lot of people are a bit, I wouldn't say they're unkind to Pat, but I think they just see him as this old punk rocker that stands there and thrashes out power chords for 3 hours and doesn't really, if you turned him down in the mix a little bit, people wouldn't notice. But it's not the case. There's a lot more to the layering of the guitars than, we've just brought Pat back because he's Pat Smear.
Yeah. Especially when you hear like really fat guitars, that's Pat. Because he usually plays the baritone. He mentions I don't know if he mentions that in that Shred with Shifty episode or in another place, but usually plays the baritone just to add, because he's like, what am I gonna do? He has the same view as as his critics. Like, what am I gonna do? There's already two guitars, so he's like, maybe I'll just go with the baritone, and I add a little bit of weight whenever the weight is needed, and it's another tool to use, especially in the studio. Maybe you only need one person. Like they've recorded every instrument on the first record, so you can always say that, oh, he doesn't need anybody. But of course he does, because doing stuff alone is psychologically is not the same thing as being in a band or being surrounded by people you love, and that you can like bounce ideas back and forth. Even though one person writes the song, you still get input from the other people. You're not just like I said, you're not just a crazy person with an idea in your head that you don't know if it makes any sense. So it kind of helps in the creative process of recording the song. Maybe not writing the song, but like recording the songs. The band members change it a lot. I mean, how could we live without Nate Mendel's bass lines? If you pay attention to those bass lines, they're yummy. They're really yummy.
I think that's a really interesting point, though, because also they wouldn't have used all the. I mean, you mentioned one of them, Chris Novoselic, on this album in particular, and you had people like Bob Mould as well. But if you think of all the guest musicians they brought in over the years on various albums, and I'm sure they haven't just done that for fun.
Yeah,
they've done it because they've thought that person's gonna bring a different perspective or a different take to the record, and it freshens things up, especially if you're a writer and you're on album number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever, and you've got to find new ways of doing
and you're tired of hearing your voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but definitely, I mean, we know that every collaboration enhanced the songs that they've participated in. Like Bob Mould is a great example as well. Like Dear Rosemary's with his voice, with Bob Mould's voice, is really, really nice.
Yeah. You started talking about the drums on A Matter of Time, and I think Taylor's drumming deserves a bit of attention on this, because instead of being like flashy fills, he just keeps this relentless momentum up throughout the whole song.
Indeed. I mean, it kind of goes again in a different, in a contrasting way. It's because the intro, we have that very, what's the term, staccato or something like that. That it's very like, it's very broken in terms of rhythm. It's not like a straight. It's not a beat. It's not some beat that we can just clap our hands to. In a way, it's more like a. So it's very bouncy in a way, but then it just goes to and then we're straight back in the verse, like going, keeping the attention on the lyrics and on the melodies and on the guitars, and then it explodes again on the chorus, where it goes like again in a straight line but with more energy, and he's just enhancing the song instead of like bringing himself to the front of the song, even though he does that on the intro, and on that riff it's more like drum bass. The drums are louder there and everything, but on the rest it just enhances the song like Taylor always did.
Yeah, it's never overpowering.
Yeah.
Just lastly on this song, the live history is quite interesting, because they played it live 18 times, but only in 2011 when the album came out. And it's quite an interesting point, because we were talking earlier about the whys and why nots and maybe nots of the new record, and why those songs aren't getting much of an outing. But Wasting Light, that was an album they really, really backed, that one. And if I was going through the set lists earlier from that tour, and they consistently played that whole album in full. So it could be like, in comparison to what you said about your favorite toy maybe being built more for the smaller shows, this one is they felt this is their big rock album.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that, doesn't it? Especially, I don't want to change the subject, but especially starting with Bridge Burning, that is a great show opener. So, and I think Dave actually mentioned it. Like they do track albums like if they were vinyl as well with side A, side B, but also like sometimes with the idea of a show in mind, like a great opener and a great closer and stuff in the middle. And in Wasting Light, that comes across also in A Matter of Time, but the other songs around it give us clues into that as well, because they are really meant to be played live. I mean, they sound great on the record, and then they sound amazing live as well. Maybe because also they went back to that stripped down production. I mean, they went on to make songs sound bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they kind of pulled back and was like, no more computers, no more gridding the drums, no more. I don't trust producers. I don't want them around the computer changing things, going to tape.
Yeah, it was all complete and utter analog, this album, in Dave's
Yeah,
home studio. Yeah. Yeah, and so, but maybe that had something to do with it then, that they kind of thought, well, this is as close as we're going to get to an album that sounds live. So let's get up there and play it and do the whole thing.
yeah, yeah. And it kind of the same happened with But Here We Are. Those songs are not classic Foo Fighters live show type of songs. You know, they're like the ones that they record and then they never play live because they're more like subtle or they're not as energetic as they want to be live. I mean, it all depends on how they want to be live. You know, I guess that's how they're gonna decide what songs they play. Do they want to be like the quiet act, or do they want to keep people on the edge of their feet, jumping up and down? And I don't mind jumping up and down, even though I'm 42. It's great to know that I have legs. The next day after a show is like, oh, I have legs.
Yeah, legs, ears, back. You start
Yeah,
feeling those
neck.
ailments as you get older.
Yeah, neck.
Yeah. So, lastly, to finish off with this song, where do you kind of put it in terms of that album? Because there's so many great songs on that album. Would you say it's underrated, overlooked? Where would you? I don't know. How would you? What's your sort of overriding feeling about A Matter of Time?
Well, if to be honest, I think there's no overlooked song by the fans. I mean, there's no overlooked song in Wasting Light. I think I think so, because whenever I see uh, any song of Wasting Light in content on social media or whatever, people are always going to be like, "Oh, this is my favorite one," and it was like, "Really, is your favorite?" Because for me, I have my favorites. Not to say that this is not a great song, but like you're always going to find people who are going to be like, "Love this song, love this album, love," and it's going to be a different one than the one you're expecting. And a lot of people actually mentioning that. And so, like, overlooked, Wasting Light is not as an album on a whole as a whole, but this song I would say, because the other ones are so good. I mean, there are other songs that are really so good. I mean, I love Bridge Burning. It's a great opener. I love Rope. It's you just can't not dance to that one. Walk, of course. It's the anthem of that album. But like, and and then we got These Days, which is another fan favorite. And so between These Days and this one probably goes gets thrown a little bit in the back of it. But but I think it's probably rightly so, because not for its lack of merit, but because of the merit of the other songs. That's what I mean. Long story, short story long. That's what I kind of wanted to to tell. But I never skip it.
No, I think the other thing we just forgot to mention is it's a really impressive vocal performance by Dave because at the end of the chorus he kind of goes really high.
Yeah, really like busting his balls there, and I love to sing as well, and I love to sing Foo Fighters songs, that note at the end of Matter of Time is like really fun to sing. It's like the ones that feel really good to sing. So I really understand why Dave loves to scream, man. It just feels so liberating, and that is really liberating at the end of A Matter of Time. So I guess I also feel songs that way, and they feel really great to listen because it feels great to sing them as well, scream them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tiago, that was brilliant. Thanks for giving us the lowdown on the show last week and for your brilliant analysis of A Matter of Time too. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Do you want to just give a quick shout out for the Foo Fighters Portugal Instagram page before you go?
Okay, if you want to follow us on Instagram or Facebook, the handle is Foo Fighters PT from Portugal, and we usually post in Portuguese and English because we know there's a ton of foreign followers as well. So we think of everyone. And thank you for inviting me, and sorry for talking maybe a bit too much sometimes.
No, that's not a thing on here. Don't worry, you did a great job.
Oh, thank you. I'll believe that. I'll accept that.
I like your song better than mine. But I have to finish the song.
Thank you very much to Tiago for a very forensic analysis, both lyrically and musically, of A Matter of Time. Just a few facts and figures on this one that I wanted to cover off. As mentioned, and I'm sure you all know, it's track 8 on Wasting Light. It was recorded in Dave's garage studio sometime between September and December 2010 with the famous Butch Vig on production. I think I may have mentioned during the interview, it's live history. It's been played live a total of 18 times, the first being in Santa Barbara in January 2011, and the last being at the Metro in Chicago in August 2011. But in between times, there were some quite notable performances of this song in there. One that's very famous in Foo Fighters folklore, the Secret Show at Dingwalls in London, which I gather was announced, I think, on Zane Lowe's Twitter account at the time. In the same week, the NME Awards at Brixton Academy when Dave picked up the Godlike Genius Award, and the band ended up playing a much longer set than you'd typically expect at one of these events. They played it at Goat Island in Sydney, Australia, which I think was a special competition winners show. And if you've heard Debbie Shepherd from the Aussie Foo Crew on the podcast previously, you'll know that we're banned from talking about that show. I'll refer you back to episode 28 if you've got no idea what I'm talking about. And then the other notable one was the David Letterman live show at the Ed Sullivan Theatre, where the Foo Fighters paid homage to the Beatles. They'd got the suits on, the Beatles font on the drum skin, and then a lot of the footage that you see online is in black and white too, in reference to the famous Beatles Ed Sullivan performance when they first arrived in America. Also had quite a cross-section of opinions on social media when I posted about this song. So I'm going to start with Lee Larson, who messaged in to point out that this is actually the favourite track of Andy K. Taylor, the Foo Fighters tour photographer. So apparently A Matter of Time is Andy's favourite, and Lee says they should play it for her. And I think we can all agree that if anyone is worthy of a dedication, Andy is right up there for all the great photos she takes of our favourite band. Then we've got Jeremy Jacobs, who came on the pod a while ago for a good old guitar nerd out. And he's really great at breaking these songs down. He says, such an underrated track, one of my favourites on an already stellar album. This is classic Foo Fighters, some of the best triple guitar work they've done in this tune. So many layers. Mia Lamarina says this song is fantastic from front to back, and as always, Dave marries composition and melody to the lyrics, slowing down the invitational intro to the song to start the conversation. Maka Chokan says, a banger, completely forgotten by the band. And then in contrast, you've got Dave Hardwick, who says, weakest on the album for me, and I love that album. Marcus Rolfe, like with all of Wasting Light, I'd just say, I wish they played it more. Benjamin Campbell, one of the weakest songs on the album, in my opinion. The riff isn't that interesting, and I don't like how repetitive the chorus is. Having said that, it's got some cool 3 guitar arrangements going on, pleasant verses, and an interesting bridge. Far from a bad song or anything like that, just rounds to okay for me. And then CJ Gums, I thought this was a filler track on an otherwise decent album. So quite mixed in terms of people's thoughts, but regardless, thank you to everyone who chimed in with an opinion on this one. Really pleased that the A to Z is generating such interest, and I think it's ain't it the life from There's Nothing Left to Lose is the next one we'll be tackling. Another track that's rarely talked about, I suppose. So we'll look forward to digging into that one. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks again to Tiago for joining me for this week's chat, and of course to all of you, the listeners. Don't forget to give us a follow, not just on Instagram, but I'm starting to do a bit more on Facebook and TikTok now too, if you're hanging around over there. Foos Files Pod is the handle across pretty much everything. Have a great week, take care, and I'll see you next time.